There we go. Aloha, everyone. This is Tasha from ElleLiveAction, and I am very excited today to have a guest. It's not just me speaking alone. Oh my gosh. We have Wendi Dragonfire here, and as shared in the comments, she has over 50 years of experience in martial arts. So tune in
And
um,
self-defense.
and self-defense. Yes, let's put this in there because that's definitely what I'm all about. So I'm excited to be able to share today. Wendi, how are you? Where are you in the world so that people know?
I'm fine. I haven't been out since March because I live in the Netherlands and their whole um approach to COVID has been so horrible that I haven't gone out.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I'm in the Netherlands, which is, of course, if people don't know it, it's in Europe. It's near Germany and Belgium and France and the North Sea. A lot of people don't know where it is, and some people call it Holland, but Holland is just one of the provinces. It's not actually the country.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. So that's where I am. And I have been here for 37 years, so more than half my life.
Wow. And
Yep.
so and then also, I just want to let everybody know if you're joining us live, just put live in the comments. If you are joining us in the replay, just put replay. And if you have questions, just ask throughout. We are here. So, Wendi, just share a little bit about your background. I could look at your bio, but I think that you know it best. So,
Yeah,
I hope you do.
I hope so too. I I've been studying Okinawan style of karate called Shuri Ryu, and my teacher was was the late Grandmaster Robert A. Trias, who is considered one of the fathers of karate in America. I've also been studying modern Arnis for 40 years with Professor Remy Presas, who is considered the father of his style of stick fighting, and Kali, Eskrima. It's got lots of names. And I've been studying and developing self defense for the whole time. I've been involved with lots of different incarnations of what we call women's or feminist. Now we call it empowerment self defense. And there have been lots of incarnations, and it continues to grow, which is what I love about martial arts and self defense. Is you're just never done. And I'm involved in an organization called ESD Global, Empowerment Self Defense Global, which was founded by Judith Siddickman. And she's an amazing mover. She's a mover and shaker. She has created a school in Jerusalem that's every martial art and self defense you can think of, and it's just a whole floor of a huge building with like six training spaces. And I started teaching for her in Israel about 20 years ago. So I go to Israel regularly to teach as well. And she is one of them. I have learned so much from her just because of her generosity and her ability to bring people together and to create um, a place for people to learn how to become teachers. And ESD Global is now in something like 50 countries.
Yeah.
They've trained teachers in 50 countries. And I believe you might have some experience with that yourself.
Well, yes, I do. I was the cohort in 2019, and it was amazing. And I instantly fell in love with Judith. I thought that she's an awesome human. And we got to do an activity, and I connected, and I was like, wow, she's so
Yeah,
cool.
she is. She's very cool. She's funny, she's fun, she's knowledgeable. When I start telling all the things about her that I like, she's the last time she told me, "You're embarrassing me. Stop doing that." And I'm like, "You just do so much good that it's hard not to ring your bell. I mean, you're just amazing." And she is, and she's done amazing work and continues to do amazing work. And she's building several new businesses, organizations. I don't know what you want to call them. But one of them is the sport part of martial arts. And she's gotten Arlene Lemus to be the CEO of that organization.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, and as you know, Arlene is amazing. And for those of you who don't know who Arlene Lemus is, Arlene Lemus was the first woman to participate in the Olympics in Taekwondo, and she got a gold medal.
Yeah.
So she's sort of amazing.
She's more than sort of amazing. She's
Yeah,
awesome.
extremely.
Yeah, she was my facilitator at ESD when we had the training, her
Yeah,
and Liz Fitzgerald, and both of them. I'm like, wow, you are powerhouses. You're just
yeah,
so awesome. And yeah, so that is so cool. I think that you know what I've seen of Judith, she just has this huge heart, and I'm just so grateful because without that, I wouldn't have been able to get the scholarship to actually go and train
yeah.
and do the work that I'm doing.
Right.
You know, I have my 18 years of martial arts self-defense experience, but for me, just doing empowerment self-defense when I was there and learning the curriculum, I was like, wow, I've
Yeah,
arrived.
yeah,
This is it.
yeah.
So
She's
you know,
amazing at bringing people together. She has an incredible knack for recognizing talent and for bringing people together.
yeah,
She's so generous. She's just so generous
yeah. So
of spirit and everything else.
I'm sure I could talk about Judith for an hour, but I also
Yeah.
want to hear about you. Let's get back over to you. Because
Okay.
I hear awesome things about you too, and I think you have you know, so many stories to share, and you know, for you, why did you get into martial arts? What was that story behind that?
Well, I have several, but how I actually started was I was in a women's liberation group, and I'm gonna get rid of that sound. Um, I was in a women's liberation group, and there was a woman teaching, and I was going to college in La Crosse, Wisconsin, in the United States, and there was a woman teaching, and she offered our women's group for a very reasonable price to teach us once a week for the rest of the semester.
That's awesome.
And I yeah, I took one class, and I thought, and I was like, I got struck by lightning, and I was like, oh, I got to do this for the rest of my life. We need this. And at the time when I was saying we, I was thinking of women, but I think everybody needs it, because I think empowerment self-defense would change how men look at women in terms of sexualizing them and feeling empowered to be part of rape culture. And I also think that it helps women to become better able to speak for themselves, to use their voices.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really important not to forget that self-defense is really a men's issue, because we don't need it without them.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be really focusing um, on women raising their sons differently, and not saying things like, "Oh, boys will be boys." Forget that.
Yeah.
Boys are only boys when you let them be boys. Teach them properly, and they won't act like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something on that should be taught in schools as well. I think
Oh,
it should just be part of the curriculum for boys and for girls separately, because they have separate issues.
well,
And
all genders, I think.
yes, absolutely, absolutely, you're right. Especially because gender is so fluid,
It is.
and and people are learning so much younger that they don't fit into the gender that they were born with.
Yeah.
And so you're right, absolutely, it should be gender neutral. But also, um, we need to figure out ways to. I mean, I know lots of people who are teaching um, different kinds of self defense, and I myself have taught groups for trans women, for trans men,
Yeah.
um, and it's, the needs are different, and we need to address the needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, for me as a lifelong learner, I think that there's something so important about continually growing in those areas, especially if you are teaching and you come across people who have different ideals or come from different backgrounds than you. I think that it's vitally important to actually go and get training in those areas if you suddenly are like, wow, this was new for me. Um, and I love that you're also mentioning about the importance of having men come in and train and learn, because men have been victims too. I've had men come into my class, and I've seen some of the women in the class like, why are you here? And I'll see them flinch when we get to like a
Yeah,
chokehold or something like that. And I'm like, this person has had something happen to him.
yeah,
And so it is
yeah.
it is really interesting to think that what if everybody had empowerment, self-defense? What if everybody realized that they had a voice, and how can you channel that voice in a healthy way? Um, so background soundtrack. Uh,
Turn it off. Hold on a second. I
yeah.
can't talk now.
Uh, so so Wendy, you said that um, you've studied your main style. When it comes to going through the martial arts world and the self-defense world. I know the difference, but I think that it's always important for viewers to understand what is the difference between martial arts and self-defense.
Well, the way I like to explain it is if you're going on vacation for 2 weeks in France and you don't speak French, you get a little French book that tells you how to ask for where the bathroom is, how to order a beer or wine, how to get a room, how to find places of interest and what have you. But you don't learn French fluently for a 2 week vacation. And for me, martial arts is the language, and self defense is the emergency. I need to know how to make sure that I'm safe, and without having to dedicate my entire life to learning it.
Yeah,
So that's the comparison that I think makes sense the most. Udit uses a comparison that I think is also good for people. Why would you have your children, or why would yourself want to take self-defense? And she says you wouldn't want your children not to learn how to swim.
yeah, yeah,
And so self-defense should be seen as you need to know how to defend yourself. You need to know how to swim.
yeah. I've always just
And
talked about it being a life skill. Um,
yeah, yeah, but you don't have to learn it in such a way that you become a teacher of it. You don't have to become a teacher of martial arts.
yeah,
You can become a teacher of self-defense without becoming a teacher of martial arts. And that's important.
yeah, so true.
And that's what ESD Global offers.
Yeah. And I mean, and it has. I think that when it comes to self-defense, I see it as adding in more of the mental and emotional aspects, whereas uh, my experience in a dojo training, 5 days a week, it was very much here's the physical. Here's this. It wasn't okay, someone's going to grab you here. What do you do? It's here's a punch, here's a block, here's,
Yeah,
here's this.
yeah,
And there was a dogma that went along with it. So there's that. There was the sense of community, but it wasn't the same.
yeah.
So
Well,
have you?
my
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. My karate teacher actually did teach us to use our voices. He did teach us to set boundaries. He did
Nice.
teach us, which was very unusual. And considering I've been
Yeah,
training 50 years, and this guy was in his late 50s when I started training with him, you
that's
can
awesome.
imagine how unusual that was. But it was for him. He said, "Well, why?" He always said, "You nobody gets out of a fight without getting hurt. So why get into the fight? If you can
Yes.
avoid the fight, avoid the fight. You only fight when you have no choice." And that was the basis from day one of my training.
See, and
So
I wish that more martial arts schools and more dojos would actually promote that, just because I've had so many interesting experiences where, and it's usually brown belts, but it's like, hey, if we got into a fight, which one of us would win? And I'm like, I teach self-defense. I don't teach martial arts. Like, I don't even want to get into a fight with you. So it is always really interesting to me to have different schools of
yeah,
thought and hear different people who their whole focus is on fighting, as opposed
people,
to that.
yeah, people say to me, "Oh," when they find out that I do martial arts and self defense, especially the martial arts part. They find out I'm a black belt, and that I'm a ninth degree black belt, and oh my God, I wouldn't want to run into you in a dark alley. And I say, I'm the best person on earth for you to run into in a dark alley because I would help protect you. I would never attack you, and if you got attacked, I would be there to help.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And it's like switching that narrative from martial arts is about fighting. Martial arts is a defensive art, defensive, not offensive. And so many times people forget to teach that. And
Yeah.
it's not about attacking, it's about defending. And sometimes the defense is when they cross over your line, you you do something physical. You don't wait for them to hit you before you hit back, but you don't start the fight.
Well, and Wendy, when was there a time, or has there been a time, I'm guessing there has, but has there been a time where someone has crossed that boundary with you, and what did you do?
The worst one that I had is when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, where my teacher was, I used to have to hitchhike to work, and I
Oh,
worked the night shift. And so I hitchhiked to work, and I was hitching a ride, and I would never get into a car with more than one man unless it was a four-door car. So I had my own door. And I got into this car. There were two men, and it was a four-door car. And I told them where I wanted to go, which was straight up the road. I didn't need to turn anywhere. And they turned and gassed it. And I said, let me out. I'll just let me out. And they wouldn't. And we were just going past green light, green light, green light, green light. Now, this is Phoenix, Arizona, which means at some point we're going to be in the desert and there are going to be no stoplights. So at the very last light before the desert, it was red and there were cars ahead of us. So we had to stop. And before we even stopped completely, I jumped out of the car. And then I had to start hitching back. And at one point, this car started to slow down, and something about it, I listened to my inner voice, which is a very important part of self defense. And I stepped back into this field that was there. And it was the boys that had given me a ride the first time. And I did something extremely stupid. I got mad. I was probably 100 feet away. And I said, why don't you get out of the car and fight like a man? Now, we don't do that. It's stupid. So one of them got out of the car, and I ran into traffic to to have witnesses and to protect myself. But in those when you're first starting, and I was still a young martial artist, you do have this sense of wanting to prove it, and it's a stupid thing to want to do, but it happens. And then if you're smart enough, you run into traffic, so you don't have to actually fight.
yeah.
And I've had a couple of other incidents where I've tried to stop somebody from crossing the line and they don't stop. And I've had to, I generally try to just walk out, but I've had my way blocked. And then I've had to resort to physical defense because they blocked my way and started to come at me, started to try and grab me, and I had to stop them. But
Yeah.
it's, I mean, my best way is right away before anything happens is to speak in a normal voice and set my limit, and then if that doesn't work, to become stronger in my voice, and then to yell, and then if they keep coming and I can't get away, because I'd rather get away. If I can't get away, then we see what happens. But I never do more than is necessary. We have we have what's it called? Um, the words we live by in our dojo are contain rather than hurt rather than maim rather than kill rather than be killed. And that works really well because because when you're going on adrenaline, you have to be able to still maintain control. And so you have to
Absolutely.
learn that control somewhere. You have to learn it in your martial arts training.
Yeah. So
I mean, and in your self-defense training, of course. But self-defense, there's much less of that urge to get in a fight.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm sorry that that happened. And I think that this is the story of women. So many,
And I
yeah,
learned so much from it. Every mistake I've ever made has been a better teacher than I could ever ask for.
yeah,
And a friend of mine once said, "Yeah, mistakes are like pearls." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, when an oyster gets a piece of sand caught in their system, they try to push it out, and when they're trying to push it out, it turns into a pearl,
yeah.
and it becomes a gem." And that's what I think mistakes are. Mistakes are gems that turn into pearls that help us learn better and protect ourselves better and not have to protect ourselves, because the more presence we have, the less approachable we are for people's violence.
Absolutely. And, and part of that, for me, I always call those lessons. I just, people have heard my stories and, and it's just this gut wrenching thing for a lot of people because it's like they're hearing it for the first time. I've, I'm sharing it. So, I think that it is really important to understand that if you did get into a situation, that you're you're not stupid for getting into the situation. It happened, and then understanding that it is a lesson. It's a pearl.
Yeah.
Um, now I know that.
I was a young pup, and I was and th- challenging somebody who's trying to attack you is not a good self-defense tactic.
Yeah.
And I learned that by doing the wrong thing.
Hmm.
And I say stupid because I know better now, but at the time it was a huge lesson.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely have had a few moments where I look back and I think, wow, that was cocky and arrogant. you know, and
Yeah.
um, and I am grateful for those moments where somebody did have get in a couple of licks and I'm just like, okay, yes, I have learned, this is good. Even though it's sad when it's happening. But
Yeah.
for viewers, I'm just looking at you and from the camera angle, you look large as life. It's just like, okay, I wanted you're like,
I think I
hello.
have to pick up my phone.
Oh, well, I just wanted people to understand, like, how tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
Okay, so you're 5'6", so average frame, different stuff
Average.
like that.
Yeah.
Average, yeah, because some people they'll think, oh well, Wendi can do it. She's taller. Wendi can do it. She's is this or that, and I think that it is
I'm
really
70
important.
years old. I'm 70 years old. There's lots of things I can't do anymore, but I can certainly survive any
Yeah,
situation I have to.
yeah. So it's good to it's good for people to just understand, there's that people look at me with the camera angles and I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, I am 5'3" and 3/4, and the 3/4 is very important, which is why I say I'm five
Yeah.
foot four.
My
Like if I
sister's five
stand
feet tall, so
if
I
I
get
stand
that.
up extremely tall, I am 5'4".
Yeah.
But that brings me to this other question because right now we are in the middle of a pandemic. You said you survived through you know, anything you need to. There are different things happening right now in the world, which are just pretty horrific, pretty crazy. I did want to start out with just the pandemic because I know that you have set some very clear boundaries with people throughout this process so that you feel safe. And I just wanted to see if you could share some of those with viewers so that they have the tools.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I said in the beginning I haven't been out since March, and that's true. But there's a grocery store on wheels that stops in front of my house twice a week, and I go double masked to the grocery store on wheels twice a week, and the guy that runs it has a mask, but it's only been required in the Netherlands for 4 weeks for people to wear masks. So when people come into the store and they don't have a mask, I say to them, you have to wear a mask. Most of them say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot my mask. And I always say, you just have to go back inside and get it. You live in the building. But most of them don't. But one woman was really, really rude, and she was just giving me crap about it and just saying, it's ridiculous. And I said, you do realize that wearing a mask that my wearing a mask does not protect me. It protects you. So you're not wearing a mask basically is saying to me that you don't care about human life, about other human beings. You only care about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that people, I mean, there is a small, I protect myself. I think, what is it, 15% now that masks protect the person wearing them 15%. So it's not completely nothing, but it's pretty close to it. And it protects other people way more. And because I double mask, I wear a cloth mask and then I wear a plastic mask over that.
Oh, okay.
I, I really, I'm really doing my best to protect other people. So, and everybody, now that it's required, I can say to people, you need to wear a mask. It's required.
Yeah.
Before that, I could only thing I could do is keep distance. And I still have to sometimes. There's this one guy who uses the store and he wears a mask now and he waits outside till I'm done, but he stands right by the doorway. And I
Mm.
say to him, would you just move back? And he said, I'm out of your way. And I said, no, I'm not asking you so I can get through. I'm asking you because I want you to keep distance. Oh, okay. And he's very good about it. And he just steps back 2 meters and everything's fine. But most people are like, and it's like, it's such a small thing.
Yes.
You know, if you were driving your car down the street and somebody accidentally stepped off the curb, you would hit your brakes.
Yeah.
And you might be mad about it, but you'd still hit your brakes because you wouldn't want to hit them with your car. But not wearing a mask, well, too bad. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you
yeah,
for sharing that experience.
I'm pretty passionate about masks.
Yeah.
I go to the pool normally in non-pandemic times, 4 days a week, and they opened the pool after the first unlockdown when they stopped after the first one with all these rules, but they didn't make people wear masks. And I said, until you start making people wear masks, I'm not coming. They finally did have people wear masks. I went twice, and then we had a complete lockdown. And
Mm.
then 2 weeks later, they opened again, and I went there one time, and again, I was double masks, and then in the water, I took the cloth mask off and left the plastic one on because it didn't matter if it got wet. And I just didn't feel safe, and I stopped going again. And I bought myself a rowing machine, so
Oh,
I had
nice.
something to do. So I have a rowing machine that I do every other day.
Those are
But
great.
yeah, they're wonderful. But the as long as they keep doing these little shutdowns and then open and then shut down and open and don't really take control, the pandemic's not going to get under control. And New Zealand hasn't had a case since June
Hmm.
because they took control right away. But
Yeah.
there's 3 countries in the world who are COVID free, and all three of them are run by women.
Yeah. What do you say about that?
I
Uh,
say, hats off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, thank you for sharing your experience. My parents are both in their 70s, and I think that, it is really important to just keep that other aspect. Oh, did I? Okay.
No, it's just that I remember when I first started teaching here. I remember when I first started teaching here, and I had a kids class. No, I had an adult class, and people that were adults were coming, and their parents were my age.
Uh-huh.
And then I started having kids, and then I did a kids class, and some of their grandparents were my age, and I was
Ah,
just like, I was like, yeah. So when you said, your parents are in their 70s, it's like, yep, yep.
yeah.
That's the way it works. You
Well, I
just
mean,
get older. As long as you're alive, you get older every day.
you do. But yeah, no, I mean, like, for me it's just like, gosh, of course I would do everything that I can to support um all the different safety measures to keep my family safe, regardless of what their age is. I think that it is really important, and it's just something where I value human life so much,
Yep,
that why would I not want to do everything that I can? Um,
exactly.
and then I mean, speaking of human life, last week, well, yeah, for the United States, we had a lot of stuff going on in our nation.
Yes, we
And
did. I mean, I'm still American. I have two passports, so I keep up on American news, and I know about the attack on the Capitol.
yes, so when it comes to that and everything that had transpired,
Yeah.
what are your initial thoughts about what was happening, what needs to happen? Um, yeah,
Well, I've been an activist my entire life, and I mean my entire life. The first promise I ever made to myself, and I was less than 5 years old, was I would never keep my mouth shut in the face of injustice. And I never have in my whole life. And I'm 70. So, but I have never known the United States not to be a racist, sexist country. And in varying degrees, things have gotten more or less visible. But since Trump has been in office, he gave everybody permission to hate.
yeah,
And
fuel.
he created the most hateful regime in American history.
Hmm.
And it's going to take a lot of work to fix what he did for people of color, for indigenous people, for the land, for women. I mean, he has. Uh, they're drilling in Alaska, in what was the protected part of Alaska. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like, what's wrong with you people? And so, luckily he's only got a few more days, but I don't think he's going to go peacefully. I don't think it's going to be an easy transition. I think there's going to be a lot of bloodshed, and I'm scared to death of that because I have friends and family all over the United States, including Washington D.C. And and the other thing is that those were white supremacists who did that. If they had been Black Lives Matter or Indigenous Lives Matter or any other non-white group,
it would have been a
there would have
massacre.
been blood on the stairs of the Capitol. They would have never gotten in the door. They would have never been able to poop in, was it Nancy Pelosi's office that they pooped in? I can't remember.
I
Um,
don't know.
yeah, they would have never been able to sit in their chair with their feet up on their desk. I mean, it just none of that would have happened. If they had been black, they would have been shot. There's just no doubt about it. And that's the kind of legacy he's leaving that Biden is going to have to fix, and fix fast, because it's pretty bad. But I think those white supremacists, they've been let loose now. It's not like they weren't always there, they were. But now they've been given the freedom to speak out, and they are they are not going to be put back in the box very easily.
Yeah.
But we're going to put them back in the box.
Well, I think, part of it was something that I've noticed that, um, a lot of people have done. I've encouraged it myself because for me, I also run a group called Race in Tacoma, and it's close to 750 people, and we do conversations on racial equity and education and sharing articles and organizing and community-wide events and different stuff like that. And so one of the ways to actually really have it hit home is if you find out that that person does have those ideals, don't shop in their stores, don't give them business,
Right.
because there's lots
Because
of
the
things
mighty
like
buck is still strong.
yeah, so I mean you can say a whole bunch of stuff and that might not hit them, but them having to deal with the fact that they aren't having money come in because of the way that they are treating other people, that hits home.
Yeah.
So but another piece to this too is education. We don't have education at a very young age when it comes to racial equity. We don't have education when it comes to gender equity and what that means. We don't have education, as much education when it comes to LGBTQI, and communities and what that is. So then there's all of these questions, and and kids who are curious, they say certain things, and they grow up to have a certain mindset. So education, I think, is just so important now more than ever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
You're my new
self-defense.
hero. You're my new hero.
You're my hero, Wendi.
I think you treat me with, and I have a friend in Canada who does fabulous work. Her name is Jamie Magnuson. She works at OISE, which is part of the University of Toronto,
Yeah.
and she just does amazing work. And the first time I ever heard the word equity to not mean money was from her 30 years ago,
Yeah.
and I thought, huh, it means it means what people mean when they say equality. They really mean equity. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. So I
Yeah.
love it that you use equity
Well,
because
so oh, go ahead.
I
I
mean I just think it's really important that a lot of people don't realize that equity means equality or that
Yeah.
equality means equity.
So I mean, yeah, when I think of it and I explain it to, when I explain it to kids or I'm explaining it to adults, I look at it and I say, okay, you have a family of 4 and a family of 2. Do you think that it's fair if there was if we were going through a crisis for that family of 2 to get the same amount of proportions as a family of 4? And so just looking at it that way, because then if you have the family of 4 all getting the same portions, and a family of 2 getting 4 portions for 2 people, is that equitable? It's not.
Yeah.
So looking at it from for me as a woman, I know that for myself, I don't want I don't want the same things as men. I don't want Viagra for free. I want birth control for free. I want, like I want
Well,
certain
you want
rights for
equal
women.
pay for equal
Yeah.
work. We
Yeah.
want to be paid
Equal pay.
equally. We want to have our places in without having to fight for them. But I mean, I don't. And what we don't want is when we do something wrong for people to say, "Oh well, girls will be girls."
Girls will be girls. Yeah, yeah. I remember it hitting home for me, the realization. I was on a walk with one of my friends who ran a nonprofit theater, and I was running a nonprofit focused on education policy. And he was, opening up to me about how he was fighting for to get paid the same amount as most executive directors of nonprofits. And I was just like, I'm just curious because he wants another $5,000. And I was like, I'm just curious what that is. And I realized I was getting paid half of what he was paid at that time. And
Yeah.
it was just like, ah.
Yep. Yep. And it's unbelievable. It's like if you're a feminist and I'm also a lesbian, it means I hate men. I don't hate men. They don't mean that much to me. I have friends who are men and I love them. I don't have sex with men, and that makes me very happy. Um, I don't need birth control, but in my insurance packet, birth control is part of one of the benefits I get in my insurance packet. And I'm 70 years old. I don't need birth control, but I'm still paying for it. You know,
Ah,
it's part of the packet.
yeah, so
So
equitably, you don't need that. Take it out.
exactly, there's lots of stuff in there that I don't need that I still pay for because it's part of the basic insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, it's like trying to tell people. I mean, I used to have all these friends who they'd have boyfriends, and their boyfriends would be sucking up to me to make me like them because they thought I hated them because they were men. And I'm like, I don't even know you. Why would I hate you? I don't. If you abuse the fact that you're a man, I'll hate your behavior. But if you're just a nice guy, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's another piece that I think is really important for people to note is just the behavior of someone versus an actual person, human being. You know, to look at someone and say you're a bad person versus those are actions that I do not condone.
Yeah.
You know, really understanding that. I wanted to, I only have a couple of minutes left. I know that you also have a timeline of different things because you're a very, very popular woman. So I wanted to just, in closing, if you have a story, a success story that you wanted to share, I would love for people to hear it.
Well, my success story is that I live without fear. And I live without fear because I'm trained, because I surround myself with people who are good people, whose actions are good, and people who have bad actions, I don't let them in my life. There are certain things I have no control over. I have no control over the government and some of the things that happen in the government, or none of us have control over. Wherever you live in the world, the United States is going to influence how you live. And
Yes.
I don't have influence except my vote, which I use over that. But but in general, my biggest success story is I came from being abused as a child physically, not sexually, and I really want to emphasize not sexually, um, to starting martial arts to protect myself, and also because I was a feminist and I was doing the movement, to realizing it was something that we all needed, to becoming a teacher and to spreading that wherever I can. And that's why I live in the Netherlands, because I was invited to move here because women wanted to learn self-defense martial arts from a woman, and there weren't any at the time. And
Wow.
yeah, so
That's awesome.
my success story is my life.
That's awesome, Wendy. Um, if people wanted to follow you or anything like that, is there a way that they can find you?
Yes, I'm on Facebook, Wendi Dragonfire, Wendy with an I, not a Y, Dragonfire, and you can friend me, or I don't, and I'm on Instagram. You can follow me. Also, I think I'm on as Wendi Dragonfire, but I might be on as WD Shuri, which is SHURI. Um, and I also have a website, which is www, all small letters, Wendi-Dragonfire.com.
Okay. All right.
So, but it's really out of date because I never do anything. I have a webmaster, and if I don't give her stuff, she doesn't do anything with it. So,
That's how it goes. Well, Wendy, thank you
but
so much for coming on.
thank
Oh,
you.
did you had something else you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to say I love contact people, so feel free. Don't feel like you have to hold back. Feel free to contact me, and that includes emailing me. Which I mean, you can get my email address off my Facebook account because it's too much of a pain to try and write it down now. Anyway, but and if people ask you for it, you have it. Feel free to give it.
I do. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, Wendy, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming on and
Thank you.
have you again and make it an amazing day.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a good next meeting.
Yes.